Well, Dennis, looks like you got the runs.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
But not anymore.
What's going on here?
Oh, I got a new best friend.
Okay.
Thick and quick. I've been working on a coffee table at home, and
Okay.
it's hardwood and plywood project,
Sure.
but it's got a mile's worth of moldings to it. So
Well, cool.
I was looking for something to do those moldings with and to edge band the plywood with at the top.
All right.
So I used this and it worked like a charm. But as you can see, it doesn't run.
Oh, nice. Quick and thick.
Yep. So,
Well, tell me a little bit more about your project.
well, like I said, the coffee table is hardwood with a plywood top with edge banding and breadboard ends.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed something for to glue up that edge board, and I just did not want to use pin nails if I could keep from it, because there's
Oh,
so
sure.
much molding and stuff too. And
Sure, and you'd have holes all over the place
Yep,
then.
yep.
Okay.
so I tried using this, and it works slick.
Cool.
I just run a bead on the edge banding, and then I would put it up against the board, and I actually just used some blue painter's tape and wrapped it around.
Okay.
And that was my clamp.
Sure. It's a
Works
great way to
slick.
clamp that edge banding
Yeah,
on.
and it worked really well.
So when you applied that, did you just put a bead on or did you have to spread it out?
Well, that was a lesson learned. You can do two things wrong. You can add too much glue, and you can use a brush.
Okay. So the brush didn't work.
No,
All right.
it's too thick. So the first one I did put too much glue on, and I just used my finger to smush it out.
Okay.
And it worked fine. I mean, as far as my finger goes.
Sure.
But when I put that first piece on and I pressed it into place, there was a lot of squeeze out.
You could
And-
tell you put too much on at
Yeah,
that point. Huh?
and that ended up being an issue, because what I found is that you really got to get that squeeze out off pretty quickly, because it's a
Oh.
pretty tacky glue to begin with, and
Okay.
the longer that stays on, the harder it is to get off.
Okay, so it's maybe a little gummier than
It
what
is,
standard
it
wood,
is.
wood
Mhm.
glue is
Yeah,
then?
yeah. So I ended up using on just a thinner bead of glue, and then just brushed it out, and it worked just fine. So
Okay.
don't over glue.
Okay, all right, good tip. So it looks like you had some pretty fine molding that you had to put around that thing. The glue worked pretty good on that too?
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to build this particular coffee table, is it just
Mm.
had these moldings and it had returns and stuff, so that was something that I wanted to do. I hadn't done that.
Give you a little bit of a challenge
yeah,
there?
yeah, so it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But like I said, there was a mile's worth of moldings.
Yeah.
So I would cut them to length and then just run by then I knew, so I just run
Sure.
a narrow bead of glue down there and shrubbed it out the best I could, and then just pressed it in place. And the
Okay.
bottle says apply pressure from up to 15 minutes, but I didn't find that to be the case. I mean,
So pretty much just laid on there pretty
it
nice.
did, and I tried to put pressure for about 30 seconds or so,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed fine. If there were any issues, if I thought it wasn't holding somewhere, because I just kind of run my thumb along there to press it up. If there were any issues, I just used another bit of blue tape, and
Yeah.
that took care of it.
Tape's a great thing, isn't
It
it?
is. It works,
Yeah.
especially with this. It worked fine.
Well, and like you said, I noticed on your project you had a lot of really little short returns and stuff.
Right.
And boy, if you try and brad nail that or pin nail it,
Yep.
you run the risk of either splitting it or, if you do pin
Oh, I
nail
know.
it successfully and you put a little putty on those holes, like cherry goes dark in about a year, but the putty doesn't. So that's always a little frustrating. So I'm sure that was pretty handy stuff for that.
It
trim.
was. My goal was to do it without pin nails. So, and this was just the ticket.
Mission accomplished.
It
huh?
was. It was. I
Yeah.
did not use one pin nail.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you don't have the runs anymore.
Man, me
Because that's
too.
not good. All right. Well, cool. Thanks for telling us about Quick and Thick.
Yeah.
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, I recommend it. It was great stuff. So nobody likes the runs, so I like my Quick and Thick. But I hear you've got one you like better.
Well, I wouldn't say better necessarily, but
Okay.
I do have a glue that I used that worked really well on a project I built about 10 years ago.
And what would that be?
Well, I built this craftsman style porch for the front of my house, and this porch has a series of posts and beams, and I laminated all those up together, and so I had to find the right glue to do that with.
And you decided glue versus epoxy, being the epoxy guy that you are.
Yeah, I am an epoxy guy. Built a lot of stuff with epoxy. Love epoxy. One of the problems with epoxy is I had so much stuff to do that, number one, the cost was going to be really expensive.
Right.
And then just trying to get all the epoxy on in time was definitely going to be a challenge. So I ended up taking a chance on this Titebond III Ultimate Wood Glue, which is designed for exterior projects.
And how did that work?
It worked great. The things that I liked about it is, like I said, it has a lot of open time compared to epoxy. So I could get everything, on all the pieces and all that stuff. But water cleanup too. So if I had some runs, because you don't like the runs, I could clean all that up if I had to.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, it worked really well.
What are we looking at here? What do you got for show and tell?
Well, this is a cutoff from one of those posts.
Okay.
So these are 5x5 posts. I decided to build my own posts rather than use solid wood, because solid wood can kind of sometimes twist on you after it sits out in the weather for a while. So anyway, I had a couple of these cutoffs, and I have them in the driveway as just like tire stops. And I was looking at one the other day. These things have been sitting out in the driveway for 10 years. Long time.
Right.
And look at those glue joints.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the glue joint's failing.
The wood's starting to split a little bit,
right.
But that's pretty impressive for a standard woodworker's glue that has water cleanup to hold up that well. So, and if you look in the photos, you can see that those posts are every bit as pristine today as they were when they were built 10 years ago. So everything that I built with that glue has just really held up well, beyond expectations. And I have high expectations because I'm an epoxy guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But I'm assuming that you probably used a little bit more glue than what I maybe did on my my molding strips with my Thick and Quick.
Yeah, this is a big project, unlike that little project that you built.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Get you digging.
No, it's just a different kind of project. And so coverage was the name of the game. Anytime that you're laminating something up, you want to make sure and have good glue coverage. So that was important. Wasn't so worried about the squeeze out.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now I did find one little handy thing that we sell here at the store. It's made by West Systems, so it's designed for epoxy actually, but it's this notch trowel. It's got 3 different sizes glue notches on each side, and then a spreader on one end. So what I did was I just went on ahead and laid the beads out, as much glue as I thought I needed, picked the right trowel size, and then just went through and did this, and that put on a nice even coat on all those posts when I glued them up.
And I'm guessing that when you glued them up, you used blue painter's tape.
Really?
No, I'm guessing that you didn't use painter's tape.
I wish I could have, because you wouldn't believe how many clamps that I used. No, you had to have really good clamping pressure, just like anything you would with like Titebond 1 or 2. Really got to clamp it good. Some of these boards had a little bit of twist in them, so the clamps helped clamp them down. But yeah, I went around to everybody in the neighborhood and borrowed their clamps. I think I even drove by your house and stole some of yours while you weren't looking. And so if you got a little Titebond 3 on some of your clamps, Dennis, that's why.
I see it's an indoor-outdoor
Correct.
glue.
Yep, and you could use this for indoor projects. There's nothing wrong with that. I probably wouldn't use this on stuff like your cherry cabinet.
Okay, and why is that?
Well, it's kind of thickness-wise, it's kind of in between the original Titebond and your Quick and Thick. So like if you're gluing something up, you might see a little bit more of a glue line.
Okay.
But it's not like Quick and Thick where it like sucks it in, So any kind of exterior project, as you can see, this stuff really held up well. So super impressed with it.
All right, sounds good.
So Titebond 3, long open time, water cleanup, what's not to like?
Sounds like it. You know, and since glue is such an important part of the shop, we thought maybe we'd expand on that a little bit in a future episode.
I think that's a great idea. There's a couple of specialty glues I think we can cover that'll fit right in. So make sure and tune in next week.